Oh, Nick, are you excited for the weekend then, or... Yeah, of course I'm excited for the weekend. A new game came out yesterday, actually. I've been waiting for 7 years to play it. I'm going to go get it now after work. Pretty excited, really. Oh, all right, is it? Oh, you play video games, do you, Nick? Yeah, I've always played video games. I love video games, man. I've even got a website on them. Oh, right. Oh, I just didn't think you were the type, that's all. Yeah, sure. I mean, why would you think that? Oh, because you're really confident and, I don't know, you dress nicely. What's up everybody, Nick here for all things PlayStation 4, and that little reenactment, that little homemade reenactment you just heard right there from me is relevant to this video because today I'm talking about, in my humble opinion, adult gamers. Now, adult gamers, I'm sure there's a lot of you guys out there, hopefully some of you are actually watching this video, we get a hard time, and a lot of people tend to think that we are childish, that we are akin to grown adults watching My Little Pony. Now, that conversation continued for the girl in question to say, Nick, why are you still playing those games? You are a grown man. Now, it's worth pointing out that it is harder to find a video game for kids these days than it is for adults. A majority, and I mean a grand majority of them, either have a 15 or an 18 certificate on them. And we're not being childish, you know, we're just escaping, we're just getting out of our horrible, crappy, monotonous 9-to-5 lives, and you know, you don't need me to tell you that 9-to-5 lifestyle does grind on you and you know, does get you down. We would just rather not watch hours of TV for the rest of the evening and get bombarded with adverts. Video games, for us, keep our imagination alive, and maybe they keep the magic of childhood alive a little bit. But for anyone who honestly still has that magic in their life, can you honestly blame them? That's a great thing to have. And you know what? Pouring hours of my time into these games has not made me fat or lazy or antisocial. I like to go to the gym 3 days a week, and I'm usually a social butterfly on the weekends, and I'm perfectly competent at mixing into crowded parties. Now, this was obviously the opposite of the stereotype that the girl I did a little impression of at the start of the video had in her head. So obviously, in getting to know me over a couple of days, and then me coming out with that obviously caught her by surprise, and she'd already built up a picture of me in her mind that was, in actual fact, inaccurate. And guys, I understand you've heard it all before. You've been sat there getting muled on by some middle-aged person going, oh, I don't know how you play those things for hours on end, you're rotting your brain, there's nothing going on there. And the best thing to do is to just bounce back at them and just say, hey, you know what, do you watch TV? Yeah, sure you do, alongside the whole of the rest of the population, and that will usually put them on the spot. And in video games' defense, I would say video games are not as bad for your brain as TV. Now, there's an idea you don't hear very often. How does this work? Well, let me explain. You've got active engagement. And like a conversation, active engagement is when you're genuinely interested. It's a dialogue, it's a two-way thing, because you want to see what happens next, what's around the corner. You're interested in that conversation. Whereas passive engagement, you just sat there like a lifeless sponge, just like you are when you're watching TV, and in conversation you're just, yeah, yeah, okay, and you're not all that interested in what they have to say. Now, when this translates between TV and video games, which do you honestly think is worse for your brain? So we'll have less of this naysaying, please, peoples. And you know what really grinds my gears is the part that video games has to play in relationships, or lack thereof. Now, speaking from experience, you may start dating someone, you may get into a relationship, and that certain someone, be they male or female, may give you an ultimatum at some point. The earlier they give it to you, the more dangerous that relationship and toxic that relationship is going to be. But they'll say something along the lines of, I don't like you playing all those video games, you're wasting time on them, you have to choose now, me or video games. Now, if I turned to them and said, say for example they like to go horse riding a lot, and they really loved their horse, and I said to them, you're spending too much time with your horse, and you're spending too much time horse riding, I need you to spend time with me, screw that horse. They would be extremely offended. But when it comes to video games, it doesn't even occur to them that offence might be taken, that what they are suggesting that you do is that you give up something that you love, something that you enjoy, for the sake of someone that you've known for maybe a short period of time. And that, it takes a lot of nerve to suggest that someone does that, but people don't know that what they're saying is very offensive. And if someone does say that to you, I'm going to say, just go ahead, grit your teeth, dump that person and dump them quick. Get the hell out of there, because, as they say, that is the start of a toxic relationship. Life is too short to have something that you enjoy and give it up to appease someone else. Life is too short, guys. So you stick to what's important. You look out for number one. And if someone wants to change what you love, tell them to take a hike. And this leads me on to the complete opposite of that scenario. I was speaking to one of my colleagues from work, and I'm sure she won't mind me naming her because she's a lovely person. I've got nothing bad to say about her, Vicky. So I was sat down with Vicky, and she told me that she never used to play video games until she started dating this guy in uni who liked to play video games. And fair play to the girl, she just sat down and had a go with him, just to see what all the fuss was about. Now, she ended up playing until dawn, and in her mind, the mind of what was then a non-gamer, she saw the whole spectrum of video games as just being guns and explosions and sexism and all that horrible nonsense that, unfortunately, a lot of non-gamers get into their minds about video games. So she actually really enjoyed Until Dawn. Instead of someone who sits down with their mates and says, this film's going to be crap, I'm really not going to enjoy this film, yada yada yada, and then they really enjoy it, they don't admit it later on because they don't want to look silly, they don't want to feel like a hypocrite. But in Vicky's instance, she actually fessed up and she said, you know what, this is pretty good, I'm enjoying this. And she suddenly understood the depth of video games and what video games are capable of in terms of storytelling and the experiences that they can offer. So big thumbs up for you, Vicky. Good for you, and whatever your name is, the guy that she's dating, you are one lucky man. And there's just one last point now that I want to make before I give you my humble opinion on the whole matter, and that is the average person seems to think that they get a free pass against non-gamers. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean is if you're in an environment full of non-gamers, and you've been explicit and talkative about your hobby, then they will say something jokingly, and they won't mean any offence, and they will say something like, oh right, so no wonder you're single, and stuff like that. And it might be a laugh to start with, but when you hear the same little anecdotes from people who think they're having a laugh, eventually it does start to wear thin. When someone suggests that your hobby, as a grown adult, you have chosen to continue this hobby, and someone suggests to you that you are useless with the opposite sex because of it, when in actual fact they don't really know you at all, it's very offensive. And I wish I could say that it wasn't offensive, and there are probably some people out there that might think I'm being very petty right now, but as I say, when you hear it over and over and over from people who don't really know you that well, maybe they should think twice about what they're saying, because if say for example football was nowhere near as popular as it is, and I came across someone who is passionate about football, and I told them that their hobby was a complete waste of time, then, imagine doing that now. There'd be fireworks, things would explode, and of course, this is why you get football hooliganism and people beating each other up, because where there is passion, there is violence. Someone challenges that passion, you get violent. Now, I'm not going to suggest that I'm getting violent. The gamer community is quite the opposite, thankfully. So I'm going to wrap up now, and just before I get onto the final point, my final jab, I remember my first day in a certain job. I sat down next to this guy who was quite intimidating. He was a big guy. He was professional. He was a professional boxer, and obviously they unfortunately have quite a bad name attached to them in terms of their egos and things. But in the end, he turned out to be a really nice guy. So I was chatting to him, and he said, "What do you like to do?" And I was very hesitant, and he got it out of me in the end. I said to him, "Oh well, all right. I play video games. I like to play video games a lot." And he surprised me. He said, "Oh right, okay. Well, that's cool. You're a grown adult. You can do what you want." And wow, that was the first time. And I'm serious, in my whole life, that was the first time I had heard someone respond to me in that way on the topic of video games. Super duper respect to him. So lastly then, in my humble opinion, non-gamers should maybe take a step back and get some perspective on video games and the video games industry. The numbers are out there. It's a massive, massive industry. It's pretty much shoulder to shoulder with the films industry in terms of money. And yeah, maybe just give us less of a hard time. So until next time, guys, this is Nick Banks for All Things PlayStation 4 signing off. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you liked what I had to say. Please leave a comment, like, subscribe, even like us over on Facebook. If you like, just type in All Things PlayStation 4 on Facebook and you will find me and keep up to date with my website. So until next time, peace.